Luke, the evangelist, was the author of the gospel which goes under his name. He traveled with Paul through various countries and is supposed to have been hanged on an olive tree by the idolatrous priests of Greece.
Welcome to Martyr's Row.
Welcome back.
Episode 15.
That's crazy.
It's some type of milestone.
It's gotta be.
Yeah. I mean, you get your learner's permit, I guess.
Isn't it 16 now? Didn't they up it?
Oh, I have no idea.
I mean, I'm not in that position. So.
I'm way too far removed.
Yeah. If I can't get it now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
That would be wild. So then when can you actually drive? 18?
And it may depend on the state.
Well, that's always been true.
Yeah. I thought it was like 15 and a half universally to get your learners.
Oh, 15 and a half?
That's what it was in Ohio.
That sounds like an Ohio thing.
But then at 16, you can get your
Why 15
drivers.
and a half?
I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense.
So it's like you get your learners, and then 6 months later, you can get your driver's license.
That seems irresponsible.
Probably. But like there's like you have to get a certain amount of hours behind the wheel.
Yeah. But why would they give you less time than everybody else?
We're all driving tractors there. I don't know.
It just seems weird. So you had to calculate what day is the half?
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems like too much work.
And maybe my parents just told me that. It could be a lie.
Oh, that's probably definitely true. That has to be true. That doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're from Ohio, let us know.
Let me know. Did my parents lie to me?
Parents also
no, you've got to
comment.
wait until 6 months.
Or they were just
Actually,
like,
you know
we
what's-
forgot.
You know what's terrible? Up until that point, I never wore glasses.
Mm.
But I had needed glasses for probably about a year or two.
Okay.
But
Did you know that?
I had a suspicion.
Okay.
But I was too embarrassed because like I don't want to be a four eyes. So I was like, I'm not gonna say anything.
So you were 8?
And so, what?
You were 8 years old?
No, I was like 13, 14.
And you were like, nah, I don't want to be a 4-eyes.
Like, not for me.
That's why I said you were 8?
Oh, yeah. Now I get it. Some of us mature differently.
That's just an Ohio thing, I think.
Yeah, I was like, fuel my music. If I got bullied, get some glasses.
Stay tuned. You'll hear that music in a little bit.
Hear what the power of bullied by glasses can get you.
The power of bullied by glasses.
That's a weird sentence.
It is. It's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there.
But that's not what we're here for today. No, but I was going to say it's funny because I took my learner's permit test. So they give you like an eye exam, and then you've got to take like the written test.
Yeah.
And I was blind as a bat. But I was too afraid to say anything.
Okay.
And also I didn't really understand. I just thought I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
I was like, I convinced myself that everyone saw this way.
Did you think that, or did you actually convince yourself?
I think I convinced myself.
Okay.
Because it was like a slow regression where it's like, I'm starting to see less.
And you're like, I guess everybody does this.
Yeah. And it was to the point one day where I was in class and I had to sit all the way in the front just to barely read the board.
And you're like, how do people in the back?
Yeah, I'm like, they can't see anything. So I'd always be like, hey, can you read off the board real quick for me? I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
It was just my sneaky ways of like, I can't see anything. And then I took my permit test and barely made it through the eye exam.
Oh, you passed the eye exam?
I did. Yeah.
No way.
It was a total guess. I guessed every single thing. Well, apparently I didn't guess well enough.
Okay.
Because the lady turned to my mom, who's
They
there
were
with
onto
me,
you.
and she was like, "Does he wear glasses?" And she goes, "No, why?" She's like, "He should." He's real close, is what she said. He's real close.
He's gonna need them soon.
And I drove for a few months without glasses still.
No, they didn't put the restriction on?
No, because I technically passed.
Weird.
Yeah. And my driving was horrible.
I'm sure.
I was so bad, and I kept missing the roads I was supposed to turn down. 'Cause I couldn't read the sign. Mom was like, "Yeah, turn at such and such road." I'm like, "Okay." That was it. Was it? Well, as soon as I got glasses,
and you're like, "Look, I've only been driving for 6 months.
Yeah, I'm so new.
I didn't have a whole year like they do in Florida."
They have a whole year, Mom. Yeah. Well, then I finally got glasses, and I realized that trees have individual leaves on them. And I was like, "Oh, I can read."
Yeah. So you want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
Same thing happened to me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm responding to you
exactly.
like this is.
You're responding like I'm the only one.
I did.
You
I
gaslit me.
I did that intentionally. I was just saying, like, whoa, that's weird. So same exact thing.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but the weird thing is like I didn't know, but I also didn't think I didn't think my vision was bad.
Oh, interesting.
So like it wasn't as bad, I think, as yours must have been. But
because what's your prescription?
I have no idea.
Just dox our prescriptions.
I don't know. I could pull it up, but
just call your eye doctor.
Hey, real quick. I know it's 4 a.m.
What's my prescription?
That's a little hint back to if you've watched the first episode or the
0.
trailer, actually. Right?
Yeah, the trailer.
Yeah. But no, So same thing, but I didn't know. And I also didn't think my eyes were that bad. I just similar thing. I just thought that like things didn't have definition.
Okay. Yeah.
But I could still see stuff because my vision's not that bad.
That's helpful.
And I'm nearsighted.
Oh.
So
okay.
That's like so.
Wait,
looking.
that means you can see near.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's me too.
Yeah.
I can see close, but I can't see far.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Me too. I got that.
I can't talk.
But that is confusing, though. It's like, why do we decide to define certain things by what it's lacking or by what it possesses?
We don't know which is which sometimes.
Yeah, well, let's be consistent.
Yeah.
I don't know. That doesn't make sense. But
let's try for consistency.
Yeah, please, world.
Me too.
Please, chaos. Be a little more organized. But yeah, so like that was an interesting thing too, because then I was like, wait, what? I failed it, and I had the.
You failed it.
Yeah, because I actually just didn't know. So I wasn't like you. I wasn't like trying to like trick everybody.
Yeah. And to be fair, like I think the only reason I passed is because I got a good look at it before I had to go behind too far before I could read it.
You knew
because I looked
that you
at
couldn't see it,
and I was just like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably like gained a better memory.
Nice. I'm blind.
Well, not anymore though, I guess.
No, now my memory stinks.
But yeah, that was weird. So I just failed it, and they were like, "Oh, you can't see. You need glasses to drive."
You can't see.
And I was like, "Wait, what?" So when I was 15, I had to get glasses.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a whole 6 months before you did. I mean, we're not the same age, but
we had the same amount of time on the road.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, so same thing. And put glasses on, driving down the road, like, trees aren't just green blobs.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they're actually like leaves on theirs.
So if you're a person who saw trees for the first time, write your age in the comments with no context.
With no context.
Just write your age. That's like the not your current age, the age you were when you saw leaves for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wear glasses.
Yeah.
Or if you don't.
And if you don't, and you can't see leaves, you should probably get glasses.
This is your warning sign.
Yeah. This is your realization moment, like Paul and I had when we were at the DMV.
And you know what's interesting, since we're talking about medical stuff?
Okay.
Do you know who else was a medical practitioner?
Who?
Our boy Luke.
You got me.
Yeah, you got me.
I knew it was coming.
I knew you did. Wow, I did not see that one coming.
This whole episode, I'm just trying to gaslight you.
Yeah.
You're like,
no, actually, I did not see that coming.
I'm trying to, like, in a bad way, gaslight you so that it's so obvious. What?
Huh? Like, there's no way you didn't see that. You were so good at this,
stop.
Paul.
Like, we're an hour in. You're like, dude, okay, come on.
Oh, enough is enough.
Okay, I'm gaslit. Okay.
Whoa, I'm stopping. I stopped like 30 minutes ago. You did?
Yeah. You're just paranoid now.
You're paranoid. Got PTSD gaslighting.
PTSD gas.
Gas.
Lighting. Sorry.
Lighting.
Sorry.
With a long.
That was a laugh break.
Yeah, it was good. But you know what's funny?
So, anyways.
What I was trying to say. Don't gaslight me, please.
If you've been gaslit,
Comment below.
the age at which you were gaslit.
For the first time.
It might coincide with the first time you saw Leaves.
Yeah, or just your parents' parenting
The
style.
truth is every parent gaslights their kids. Yeah. You kind of have to.
Because they won't stop talking.
I know.
Especially me. Imagine me as a kid.
Yeah. Did unicorns actually like run down the street? Yes. Yes. Can you just stop for a little bit? I just need to make a phone call.
Well, that's what I was joking with friends of ours at your church. Recently. I don't know if I can name drop.
So weird.
I don't know if I can name drop on here.
It doesn't matter.
And it was funny 'cause your kids were running around just being goofy.
Yeah.
And we were joking. We're like, they are Steven's intrusive thoughts that he holds back. Then your wife just goes, I have to live with 3 of them.
It's true. Sometimes she'll look at me and be like, that's what you used to do that.
This is you.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like my youngest was like our coffee table is almost the same height as the couch, and he was like in his pajamas, and he just like slowly slid his whole body onto the coffee table from the couch and just had his head resting on the couch. And I looked at him, my wife was like, what? And I was like, I've definitely done that. I have definitely done that. You have your feet up on the coffee table and you just slowly slide your whole body onto the coffee.
It's actually really comfortable.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so Paul's done it too.
I also do the thing where I lay with my head on the seat of the couch and both my legs are up in the air against the wall.
I do that too.
It's so cozy.
Here's the thing. Welcome to Martyr's Row, where Paul and I are in real time realizing
where Paul tries to say something and then we go off on tangents.
No, it's the podcast where Paul and I realize that we're the same person.
It's so true.
Just slowly, one story at a time, surprising each other with, isn't this weird about me? Me too.
It's not that weird.
Yeah. While all of you go, guys, you're the only ones.
This is exclusive to the 2 of you.
We think because it's both of us that
everybody. We've gaslit ourselves.
It's like, well, if there's at least one other person, there's got to be 1,000.
That's the sample size I needed.
Yeah.
Out of everyone in this room right now.
They were the same. We're the same.
Everyone's the same.
We're also both wearing flannel right now.
Actually, it's kind of awesome. There is so much similar that we have going on.
I know.
Right now.
You can't even see it. You should see what kind of feet we have.
Yeah. 17 toes.
Oh, that's a different episode.
That's a different episode. Or is it?
We need like a sign that goes different episode.
Actually, yeah, just slap it on.
Yeah. It's like a seal, like a warning seal. Cattle prod. So what were we talking about? Luke the physician.
Yeah. You know what else he did though?
What?
Is especially amongst theologians and scholars, he's considered one of the greater historians of our time as well, or
of our
his
time.
time.
Okay.
His time.
I was like, wait.
Let me put that differently. His time.
That's also a different episode.
Where is he?
And he was not.
But what's interesting though, if you look up a list of who are some of the greatest ancient historians, his name won't show up.
Okay.
But if you look into the details of how people talk about his writing and his accounts, they actually say like, oh no, he's actually insanely detailed. Like his precision with geographical markers, with names, with customs, the approach he had to history is about as precise as you can get, which is incredible.
Yeah.
But the reason he's left out of like Herodotus or Tacitus or Plutarch or any of these guys is because he has a motivation to write this theological narrative.
Sure.
And so he's kind of pulled out of the historians because he doesn't attempt to be unbiased.
Okay.
But as far as his methods, he is on par with everybody else.
That makes sense.
Which is impressive.
They acknowledge him.
Yes.
But they don't put him in the historical category.
Yeah.
Because they put him in what category, Paul?
More of a theological category.
Okay.
Or like
but in storytelling, what would the category be?
Oh, is a myth.
Wait, it's a what?
A myth.
Oh, we're not there yet.
No, we're not there
yet.
Okay.
Do you want to get there?
Let's get there.
Let's write a song first, though.
Okay, about myth?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. And here we are.
To the back room.
To the back room.
Woo.
This is the piano room.
Welcome to the piano room.
Decided to show you that Paul knows how to play piano. If you learned anything on this episode, that would be it.
That's it.
Hopefully that's all you learned.
I hope they learn more than that.
We'll see.
Only in this segment, that's it.
Yeah. So we're just going to kind of go for it. Nothing planned.
No.
Few ideas, directions, but we'll let your fingers lead the way.
Sounds good.
Ready?
Yeah.
Let's go.
3, 2, no. Okay. Off the dome.
Here we go.
Help me find a way. Though I'm walking where death and dying meet, and then you're with me. But I stand on the shoulders of all who came before. And martyrs row, martyrs row, and martyrs row. We honor those who came before. So Paul, turn around. And through the years, they showed us how to live sold out for Jesus. They gave their lives just like he
Well, that was a little bit different.
Yeah, it was kind of fun.
So hopefully the audio is good, because and then we'll stop talking about it.
Everyone's like, skip.
yeah, bad audio.
Bad.
No, hopefully we'll work on it and it'll sound great. We won't know right now, though. We'll have to figure that out later.
You'll find out slightly after we do.
Yeah. So, Paul,
we've
been on like a 3-episode bender at this point.
We've just become church pastors. Like, I want to do a 472 part series.
Well, it's just 3. I mean, 3 is pretty reasonable.
But I feel like we're gonna keep going.
Well, maybe we'll see.
The day I get to pick up and read out of that notebook.
The
day the series is over.
Ground. I know. But I feel like that's that's one of the things that this podcast is building to, is like it's one of those things where like it's kind of becoming an answer. Like, each episode is kind of designing and building out framework. Yeah. Because that's one of the things we talk about a lot, is like really creating the room, defining terms, like building the cathedral that people can walk into and have discussions about. Yeah,
and I think that's important, because it's really easy especially with this stuff that we've been looking at for a long time now.
Yeah.
And spent a lot of time in, which is probably very new to a lot of people.
Sure.
To some extent. And so it's easy to be like, I'm all the way up here, as far as like, I'm just way down this path.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to stand higher up on the mountain and be like, hey, you should be up here.
Right.
And you're like, okay, but how do I get there?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not fair for me just to keep yelling at you, like, why aren't you up here? And be like, no, here's the path to get here. Now let's go together.
Yeah. And in some ways, I feel like that is something that's important, that I feel like Martyr's Row is intending to do, is creating that cathedral that we can walk into and we can live in. Because I think going to Sunday school or going to small groups or Bible study or whatever you're going to, a lot of times, like, you can take like a passage, or you can take a book of the Bible, and you can talk about that and create this framework. In a lot of ways, the way that you would when you read a book, and now you have all these images in your head.
Yeah.
And it's creating this framework that you can live within. And then a lot of times what happens is we take that subject, or we take that book of the Bible, or that Bible study, or that Sunday school lesson, and it disconnects from the next one we do. So like then we go to another Bible study, or the book that we're reading or studying changes. Now all of a sudden the space that we're in looks different.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't look different, because it's part of the same story.
And that's one thing I think that, like you're saying, trying to bridge those two things, that's what we care a lot about.
Yeah.
It's like, no, let's show like this is all the same story.
Yeah, we need to keep building out
and
one
like
space.
We're in a different room, but that's the door to the other room that we were just in.
Yeah. And the exterior all looks the same. It's all one building.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, so like, and in some ways it's like create the rooms and then knock the walls out.
Yeah.
And just kind of go like, oh, we're all in, this is all one thing. And so, I think the less segmented we are with that, the better.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it's, being 3 into one topic. And I guess we're not really 3 into one topic.
Which is also, it's like the whole thing is like this whole topic.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been building to this moment for a long time.
Oh, this one? I feel like the one we're building to.
Well, we're building to another moment too.
Okay.
But I feel like even to this point that we're at, it's like, well, this is a huge thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But if we just came out episode 1 talking about this,
that's true.
Everyone would be like, tune out.
That's true. That's a good point.
So it's like, it's a pathway that we're all going through, and it's like, now we can say this, and it's like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. At least based on how we've approached it.
Yeah, and you might be listening to it through the front segments, and you hear what we're saying now, and you're like, I haven't listened to anything up to this point. But, to be honest, like, for us, we're building that in a way where we want you to come along and then just go backwards if you need the framework. So, like, we feel comfortable saying it, not because we know that you've listened to all the previous episodes, but because we know we've done the previous episodes. Yeah. So it's like, well, at least what I'm saying is in context of this podcast and the conversation that's happening. Yeah. So if you're like, I'm very lost, go back.
You got to go back a few episodes.
Yeah.
A lot of episodes.
And maybe you don't. Like maybe just jump around on
Yeah, that's fair.
the questions that
what
look
questions
interesting.
are interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of questions,
Oh, yeah.
I've got one for you, Paul.
Do you?
Yeah. And I'm not gonna. It's not a cheesy one.
Darn it.
My question for you is, are you ready?
I'm always ready.
Okay.
So ready as a glowing
I've always got to
object on
remember my
knee.
questions. The glowing object on your knee. There's illumination coming up from underneath.
My knee is illuminated.
Light comes down, not from the depths.
Uh-oh. Well.
So here's my question, Paul.
Yeah.
Was Tiamat Leviathan?
Dun, dun, dun.
Not first and last name.
Oh.
Was Tiamat
Mr.
Leviathan?
Mr. Leviathan.
Hello, nice to meet you, Tiamat Leviathan. That's a wild name.
It's so powerful.
German?
German.
Definitely German, right? Or Nordic?
Nordic, I would go more. I feel
Yeah.
like.
That would be. Now you're contemplating.
Dang. What does that human look like?
Oh, I don't want to know.
Dude, just tree trunks for arms.
Oh, man. Yeah. So was Tiamat Leviathan? Answer me that. Riddle me this.
Riddle me this. Well, that's a great question.
Thanks. I just came up with it.
Yeah. I had a sneaking suspicion.
Those names are just rattling around in my brain all day.
Just like, I gotta ask.
Yeah, I gotta ask. Paul's gotta know this answer.
Well, so it's interesting. So for those that do know, if you know Tiamat just right off the rip, you're in the right place.
Not a great guy.
No.
Also, guys,
not a great
interesting
monster.
way to describe him.
Well,
Not
and
the
then
best dude.
Leviathan might be more familiar. And I'm not talking about the book by what's that guy's name? I almost had it.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
The philosopher.
Um,
You know, I was so disappointed when I read that book for the
John
first
Doe.
time. Mr. John Doe. Isn't
Moby Dick.
Anyway,
What's that monster's name?
That's it. The white whale?
No, isn't there a sea creature?
Yeah, the whale.
No, isn't there like a huge octopus in it?
Oh, probably.
Never mind.
I always think of 30,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
That might be
When I
what
think
I'm
of
thinking
that.
as well.
That's a great movie.
The ocean is a scary place.
It's a scary place, and it gets scarier.
It does.
And there's a reason for that,
Okay.
I think.
Why?
Well, before we get there,
Okay.
we kind of are getting there, actually. So
why is the water scary, Paul?
Leviathan.
Maybe I should
Leviathan.
have asked that.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, why is the water scary?
Why am I so scared of the water? Well,
Paul, answer me.
Paul, please. I've got a beach trip planned.
Why am I so scared of the water?
Please, mister.
It just keeps getting darker and darker down there. Just slowly become.
Please, mister.
I just want to know.
I want to stop being so scared all the time.
Don't be scared, child. Oh, you're supposed to tell me that.
Don't be scared, child.
Okay.
It's just Leviathan down there.
What?
A hideous
What?
sea monster.
Oh, no.
You're a goner, kid.
Oh, boy. What's my hope?
I'll actually read that for you. Okay. But I do want to say, for those that aren't familiar with what Leviathan is,
We have fun.
we do have so much fun. That one you can see throughout Scripture in
That one you can see here.
Exhibit A.
Leviathan.
I think it's in two
right here. Leviathan.
references to it in Scripture. It's a little tiny.
Yeah, just a little tiny one.
I should
A
edit
3D
that in.
character.
I should edit that in.
That would take years.
Maybe.
Disney animators,
Please.
Pixar,
Put a
preferred.
little water monster here.
Yeah, just something. It's just a picture of me in the pool.
Please, mister. Well, it's a sea monster. And we actually see it in Psalm 74. So I'm going to start in verse 12, chapter 74, verse 12.
Yeah,
And this I'm going to see what you hear when I read this to you, 'cause this is
you're gonna see what I hear.
I want to hear what you hear. I want to understand what you hear when you
Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes and listen.
just so much what you hear.
Viewers,
Okay.
stop looking at us
Close your eyes.
and listen.
Yet God, my King, is from of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. You, God, divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the sea monsters on the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness. You split open springs and brooks. You dried up ever-flowing streams. Yours is the day, yours also the night. You have established the heavenly lights and the sun. You have fixed all the boundaries of the earth. You have made summer and winter.
Well, Paul, to me, that sounds like a creation story.
That's great, 'cause that's exactly what it is.
But wait, Paul, I'm confused.
Yes.
That's in the Psalms.
Isn't that interesting?
Why? Not why is it interesting.
Why is it interesting?
Why is it in the Psalms? How do the psalmists know these things?
Well, so I feel
That is a whole other episode.
like that is actually.
Just why is there so much context in the Psalms?
There's a lot. And I think just like with music, there's so much we can express through music that we can't express normally.
Yeah, true.
And I think the psalmists often capture that
Mm-hmm.
in how they write.
That makes sense.
Which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
But what I find fascinating in this is because there's a few tropes that we see here to kind of like really establish what he's talking about.
Okay.
One of them being that he's talking about the creatures of the wilderness, which is wild. He's opening springs and brooks. He dried up the ever-flowing streams, and he says, "Yours is the day and the night." That's
Yeah.
a classic
Creation.
motif that we see in Genesis creation,
Yeah, true.
where it's there was day and there was night.
Yeah.
And then you've established the heavenly lights and the sun. It's like, oh, well, we see that too. He fixed the boundaries of the earth. We see that.
Right.
He made summer and winter. It's like, oh, so you're saying that you created all things.
Right.
It's like, that's fascinating.
It is, especially because it's like and this is one of the things we've been talking about. It's like he didn't just come up with the name Leviathan.
Mm-mm.
So the psalmist here, and does it specify it's David? Like that's always the question.
Actually, that's a good
right?
question.
But like the psalmist here, regardless of if it's David or not.
A maskil of Asaph.
Okay.
Our boy Asaph.
So a maskil.
A
No,
maskil.
Asaph is where he's from.
Oh, so a maskil. A little
maskil.
Little
A little
maskil.
maskil. So
I thought
I'll just call him the psalmist.
what is a maskil?
This
I don't think that's a name.
a little rascal.
I don't think that's a name.
Please, sir, I'm just a
Just a little maskil. I think his name's Asaph, personally.
of Asaph.
So it's like a maskil. You'd be like, oh yeah,
Oh, I see.
like
what
a
you're saying.
David.
Like a dirge
Yeah.
from Asaph.
Yeah, it's like this is like a little thing you scribbled on a napkin.
Yeah. People know this answer. Smarter than us.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
You own a dictionary.
Just comment below.
I'm gonna place this back over here.
Okay. The glowing light from below.
The illumination.
But no, I think it's interesting because the psalmist here is not making up, like, it's not like that's a really good point that like a lyricist or a musician is kind of taking stories.
Yeah.
And they are putting melody to them in order for them to be passed along from generation to generation.
Yeah.
Stories to be learned and understood and heard, right?
Yeah.
Like honestly, this is kind of a funny thing, but Castle on the Hill.
Mm.
Do you know that song just by the name?
Not by the name.
So it's an Ed Sheeran song,
Okay.
and it's like I love the song because it has like this. It's like very. If you know the song, you're like, I get what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's one of those songs where it's like, it's quick and upbeat, but the lyrics are, he's describing people that he grew up with.
Oh, that's cool.
And the castle on the hill is like because he's Irish, so it's like there was a castle near where they lived.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, there's a castle, I guess, near the town that they lived in, and they would go sit on the hill and look at the castle, like kind of how like for
So calling back on those memories that he had.
yeah,
that's
and
cool.
it was like these are the people that like telling the stories of these people and like kind of solidifying them, and that made me think about like Jesus and the lady that breaks the jar at his feet, right? And he says, "I tell you the truth, wherever it is told about me, this woman will always be remembered for what she's sacrificed," right? So it's like that type of thing. It's like the stories, and particularly songs, where it writes down and records these stories for us and specific characters.
Yeah.
So Asaph is not, or the psalmist is not coming up with the name Leviathan.
No, and it's what's interesting about it too is the order of events that he places it as, where before God sets the boundaries of the earth, before he creates the seasons and the night and the day, we see that there is this quote unquote battle, where he beheads the sea monsters and he kills Leviathan. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, that's fascinating. Yeah. And especially when we look at the idea of what Leviathan is, which we talked about, which is a sea monster. Right. We see that as well. And it's like, okay, so this is a creation myth. Right. I say that with context of our previous episode. Sure. Yeah. And it's like, okay, but does it add detail or does it just clarify detail that's already in the Genesis accounts? And I think that's the interesting thing for me. It's like, no, this stuff's actually already kind of alluded to in Genesis. Right. Now, what it doesn't mean, because I don't think we can take it too far necessarily. Sure. We can't just say, like, oh, yep, there were sea monsters here. It's like, that's not really what it's trying to say. Right. But what it's trying to say is there was chaos, and God ordered the chaos. Right. He killed the chaos by creating order. Yeah. And we see that because what happens? It's like, well, in the beginning, God created the heavens. He talks about setting the heavenlies, like the heavens in place. Yeah. He created the heavens and the earth was, Paul's word, chaos. It was without form and void. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so what is that? It's like, well, I think there's really strong cases like that is water. Yeah. Especially when we look at, I don't know if we've talked about it on this podcast before, but it says in the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the deep. Yeah. Now, the word deep there is tahom. And what's fascinating about that is that word is the Hebrew version of a Mesopotamian word. Okay. I can try to remember the language. Name of the language. We'll go with that. And that word, which there's a specific word.
Do you have it on your notepad?
Not the name of the word, but basically, tahom is the Hebrew version of the Mesopotamian word Tiamat. Okay. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah. And why is that interesting? Because Tiamat is a sea monster who Marduk, their god, beheads and creates the skies and the waters. Right. He separates Tiamat. Yeah. And it's like, so we see here in Genesis that the Spirit of God was hovering over Tiamat. Tahom, he had dominion, he had victory over the deep. The deep. And it's like, well, that's so cool. But what do we see the psalmist say? Yeah. He says, oh, he killed Leviathan. Yeah, and he cut its heads off. Yeah. That is fascinating. And then he fed it to creation. Yeah, because basically that's crazy. It's wild.
But yeah, so yeah, because my brain is piecing all this together as you're saying it. So it's like, because that was always a thing for me, is like, you get to Genesis 1:1, Genesis 1:2, and you're like, it seems like we're missing something.
This is weird, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. But the same thing happens in Psalm 74. Yeah. Where you go, all right, skies, heavens, earth, these things are all here. And then, real quick, before we keep going, let me cut off the head of this monster. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or the heads of this monster. Yeah. Separate that. And you're like, okay, that seems wild. Yeah. Except for there's a Mesopotamian myth that basically says the same thing.
Absolutely.
So I didn't know that, though. So Tiamat. Am I saying that right?
Tiamat? That's how I say it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's right.
Is the Hebrew equivalent
or tahom? Yeah.
Tahom is a Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you looked in Hebrew,
sorry, that's why I asked how you said it, because I thought I was saying tahom. Oh. My brain thought I was saying tahom. Yeah. So hovering over the deep, it's unfortunate that our translation says the deep.
Yeah.
where the Hebrew word was echoing a Mesopotamian word, and they were both, if you read Psalm 74 first,
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, they're talking about a sea monster.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
But in some ways, it's not necessarily saying it's a sea monster.
Right. But it's taking advantage of people's understanding of those motifs.
Yeah.
And utilizing it.
Yeah.
Especially when we look at a psalmist, it's like, well, they're using very poetic language as well.
Right.
It's like, so why wouldn't they use that language? That's what people knew. That's what they understood.
Well, to take that a step further, what the psalmist is doing is pointing to Genesis 1 and going, hey, guys, remember, this Hebrew word is the same as this Mesopotamian word, referencing the character that is like Leviathan.
Yeah.
And Leviathan, Tiamat, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And so
and it's always to represent the chaos of water.
Right.
And it ultimately not even just water, but just chaos.
Yeah. And
water typically represents chaos because of its unpredictable nature. It's like you can't predict what it's going to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's chaotic. It's messy.
But what's happening there, and what the psalmist calls out a little bit more plainly for, and in some ways helping us modern readers, if we can look at that account and we can echo it back to Genesis 1, which is what the author's trying to do.
Yeah.
When in reminding us, the psalm is written to remind us about Genesis 1, right? And when we remind us about Genesis 1, what is it doing? It's going, hey, Leviathan, Tiamat, the deep, the sea monster that's being separated. That sea monster, that deep, those waters were not separated by Marduk.
Yes.
They were separated by Yahweh.
Absolutely.
That's what's happening there.
Yeah.
So in Genesis 1 and in Psalm 74, which gives us insight into Genesis 1, which reminds us that word there is reaching out to this Mesopotamian myth and going, hey, by the way, you guys think it's Marduk. It's not. It's Yahweh.
Not. Exactly.
And that's essentially what's happening there.
Yeah.
So when we set up that in episodes beforehand, we're talking about, it's like you don't just come in and go, all right, Genesis 1, this is the first time anything's ever been written.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what you think. Like when you grow, especially if you grow up in church, you just kind of go like, well, the Bible was the first thing ever written.
That's the first one.
Yeah, and there was no knowledge before that.
And it's kind of weird when, at least it was for me, when I realized, oh, they're actually older books.
Right.
There's actually older writings.
Yeah.
And it's
and
like,
older traditions.
Yeah, but then it's like, that doesn't mean it's true. It just means it's older.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, which we've explained this in other episodes, is the Bible is answering the myths of the world and redirecting them the same way that Paul does.
Yeah.
By saying, hey, this unknown God, this is Yahweh.
Yeah.
This is the one true God.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so, dare I?
So because of that,
dare I?
You dare.
Yes.
But because of that, that's what we wanted to talk about is the Bible itself is referencing other myths in order to redirect attention away from false gods to the one true God, corroborating that this story is true. There's truth here in this story. Not that there was a sea monster, but that there was a deep to tame.
Yeah.
There was chaos to tame. Because I feel like I need to say that. Like,
no, it's important to say.
Leviathan, Tiamat, like these monsters of the deep, they represent chaos.
Yeah. So
in some ways, they're like a parable. They're like they're the myth element or the supernatural element that is allowing us to personify chaos. And that's the easiest way to say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but the other myths from other places are bringing validity to the scriptures, and scripture itself, the Bible itself, is calling back to those in multiple places. Yeah. Which is cool.
Yeah. It is really cool.
So, I dare you.
Oh. I've been waiting 3 episodes.
Continue.
Okay.
I dare you, Paul.
Oh.
So I
can't even read my own writing.
So educate us on other myths.
Well, yeah. So I think, and I like the way you set that up, because it's one of those things where when we talked about myths, even in the last few episodes, we looked at the historical reality, this hand-holding between supernatural and natural,
Yeah.
and how they try to explain these events, trying to answer or explain both those things.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we do see, and we will see. This is my very quick setup before I just go into it. Is there are like a lot of vital similarities, but then there's also differences.
Yeah.
But I think it's important when we look at these is, okay, what are the things that are in common and not in common?
Yeah.
I think both those things are very important for us to look at.
Sure.
So, speaking of Mesopotamia,
Okay.
let's start right at the beginning.
Okay.
So this is a collection that I wrote down of creation myths.
Cool.
Across different civilizations.
Yeah.
And so starting with Mesopotamia, this is just like 3 quick bullet points about what they have. So basically for them, the universe begins a primordial waters, Marduk slaying Tiamat, forming earth and sky from her body, creates humans from divine blood to serve the gods. So it's like, that's pretty wild, actually.
Yeah.
Because of how similar it is to the Hebrew creation, which we're familiar with, where God speaks everything into existence in 6 days, humans made in his image to rule earth. And it's like...
Yeah, so the Mesopotamian, it's from the blood.
Yeah.
Right.
So they have this mix of... Because there's a level of divinity that's given to us, is what they say. Whereas for us, it's like, well... It's not that there's divine blood given to us, because Scripture's very specific in saying, no, it was his breath that was made to animate us,
right,
and give us life. But we are elevated because of our status of being an image bearer, not because I have divine blood inside of me.
Yeah, it's like...
So it's like, that's actually...
Wow.
And what I find just between those two is so fascinating is like, it's that small little change in there that's actually extremely problematic. Because we've talked about the importance of bloodlines before.
Right.
And so for the Mesopotamians to believe that how we were created was with divine blood, it shows like, oh, there's a level of divinity inside of us. So any kind of cross relation or any kind of mixture with divinity is normal.
Yeah, that's actually
like,
a good point.
Oh, well, that corrupts Jesus then.
It does.
And it's like, well, that's super problematic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so it's more so like we're of the line of these, or down line of these gods. So bloodline, what am I, hereditary?
Yeah.
What am I trying to think of? Try not to say heresy, but hereditary. It's in that way versus being made in the image and the likeness.
Yes.
And that it's the breath of God that animates us and the word of God.
Yeah.
So it's like life and death and the power of the tongue is interesting because it's like
extremely interesting.
Right, because it's one of those things where it's spoken into existence. It's breath. The breath of God, the ruach,
yes,
or the spirit of God, versus the blood of God. So we don't have God's blood blowing through our veins.
Flowing.
Blood blows, right? It doesn't flow. But that is an interesting distinction. So it's taking one thing, it's going, here's this myth, and going like, actually, it's not blood, it's breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems, again, it's like it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it actually is a huge deal.
Well, the biggest deal is that it's not starting from nothing.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, it begins with primordial waters. It's like, well, where else do we see that? Not say a beginning, but like, what was the universe? What was Earth?
Yeah.
It was primordial water. It was chaos.
Yeah.
That's fascinating, and that's just one myth,
right?
Technically.
Yeah.
So here's a Greek one. Chaos births Gaia. Uranus and other primordial gods. Primordial is the word that just keeps popping up here so
I know.
far.
It's like antediluvian.
Yeah. Titans rule until Zeus overthrows them. Prometheus creates humans. So let's jump to a Norse. I'm going to start just kind of reading them back to back real quick.
But real quick, Mesopotamia comes before Israel.
Yes.
The Greek myth comes after
Correct.
Israel.
Yeah.
But is more downline of the Mesopotamian tradition.
It's pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the Norse one, which is
So
down in that same line.
what that means is like if there's a straight line this way, the Hebrew steps out of line, but the Mesopotamian line keeps going down into the Greek.
Yeah.
So the essentially the pagan line keeps going, but the Hebrews sidestep it and they go, no, it's not blood, it's breath.
Yeah.
No, it's not Tiamat, it's Leviathan. It's like it's not these, it's this. It's it's not it's not Marduk, it's Yahweh.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. They're like sidestepping. They're like, nope, this is
You're so close, but
I know you're really close. Like a lot of the details.
We're here.
We're doing pretty good, but it's actually over here, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, look over here.
And it's interesting because some of these seem so far.
Right.
But yet if I had written down more, we could see how close some of these are. Like so this is a Norse one.
Okay.
So Ymir is slain. He's a giant, by the way, and his body is made from, or everything is made from his body. So there's this giant Ymir, and he's killed.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, let's just make everything out of him.
The crazy thing about that is like, what's their origin then?
Right.
But I don't think they cared about that.
They didn't. For them,
we
it was
care
kinda
about
like, whatever.
that. Yeah, we care about that.
Yeah. And then Odin creates humans from 2 trees.
That's wild.
This is like kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Especially when we look at the idea of 2 trees.
Yeah.
We have a tale of 2 trees ourselves. The tale of 2 trees.
Of 2 trees?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess tree of life.
And the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's true.
I just found that interesting. Here's a Hindu one.
I often forget that there's 2 trees.
Oh yeah.
Like in the beginning there were 2 trees.
Further into the beginning.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah. So here's a Hindu one. The universe emerges from Brahman. 2 versions. 1, Purusha, is sacrificed and his body forms the world. 2, Brahma creates the world from a lotus flower. So there's like 2 versions of what might have happened.
Yeah.
And they're both kind of interesting.
Well, all the creation myths so far don't start from a big bang.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Which I have a lot to say about that even.
Okay.
Which we kind of touched on, but I'll save it for right now.
Okay.
I'll save it for right now. Okay, so here's a Chinese one from... I was going to do the Trump voice. Just know that it was in my head.
Yeah. Just know it was in my head.
So the universe starts with a chaotic egg containing Pangu. Pangu breaks the egg, forming yin and yang. Nua forms humans from clay.
Okay.
So again, it's like there's some very interesting details and some very interesting differences.
Just sounds like a bad breakfast.
This chaotic egg.
Who gave me chaotic eggs?
And then here's the Egyptian one. Atum emerges from Nun, chaotic waters. He creates Shu and Tefnut, who birth Geb and Nut. Humans are formed from Atum's tears. It's hard to read these with a straight face sometimes.
None created Shu.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right.
To be honest with you, it's not even making fun of them. It's like what's funny to me is how dumb English is.
Yeah.
And our traditional arrogance is to be like, oh, these crazy names and all this
Wild
stuff is
stuff.
like, what is a? It's like
What
no,
darnation?
like look what English does to language. It makes it so stupid.
It does. That's why we think these guys don't know anything.
I know.
We just can't pronounce their words.
I know.
So here's a Mayan one.
And it's like, well, don't say it like that. Like that's not the name. Like the pronunciation is part of the name.
Yeah, or like I don't know it though.
Yeah.
So here's a Mayan one. The gods Heart of Sky and Heart of Earth create the world. Humans are first made from mud, the wood, but it fails.
Oops.
Finally, with corn, which becomes sacred.
Makes sense.
I knew you liked that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, makes sense.
And then here's the Aztecs. 4 failed creations, each ruled by a different sun. The 5th sun is created when, Nana Hudson sacrifices himself. Humans made from bones of past worlds and blood of gods.
Humans made from past worlds and blood of gods.
From the bones of past worlds.
That's wild.
So there's quite this one, the Aztecs, I think, are very interesting in the new detail they add.
Okay.
And it's that strange idea, which is 100% a lot of other episodes.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, what happened before Genesis 1:1?
Yeah. Yeah, good
Or
point.
did anything happen? And that's part of the question. And I think it's a very interesting conversation to have.
Yeah.
And I find it specifically interesting because the Aztecs kind of touch on that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's this weird detail that they add in there. It's like, where did you even get that from? That this is like the 5th time the creation has been done.
Yeah. Well, and the Mayans and the Aztecs come later.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of interesting details, both of them.
Absolutely.
In their myths and traditions.
The corn one really stands out.
The corn one's awesome. But they also talk about like mud and clay made of the earth.
And we see that from a few places where there's this idea that humans were made from the blood of gods or made out of clay.
Yeah, or tree.
Yeah, or tree.
So like organic material.
Yeah.
Or earth grown organic material.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is essentially what man is made from.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that's interesting is humans are never just kind of there,
right? But
they were created from a god.
Yeah.
Or some kind of supernatural being.
But not necessarily by a god.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what's also interesting about it is that a lot of these stories, the god creates the universe by sacrificing himself or a part of himself.
Yeah.
Or it's made from the sacrifice of something else.
Right.
And it's like, I think that's also very interesting.
It is.
Because it's like, so they have to create from something, which is usually themselves.
Right. Yeah, so then the question is like, well, what's the origin of the origin story?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's that idea is like, well, when we say what's the beginning of all things,
yeah,
they weren't necessarily asking that. They were asking what's the beginning of us, which I don't know if they're more narcissistic or we are. Like in some ways they weren't like, hey, God, what is the beginning of you? They were saying, what's the beginning of us?
And I think it kind of explores or kind of exposes their minds and how they thought, which for them it's like, oh, like a God just being there is not a big deal.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I think it was actually Wes Huff that talked about this on an interview I saw with him.
Okay.
Where he talked about the resurrection of Christ.
Yeah.
Where for a lot of the people at that time, it was not weird that he resurrected.
Yeah.
It was weird that you would worship a crucified God.
Yeah.
And it's like, they weren't caught off guard by the resurrection part at all.
Right.
They were just like, yeah, that's fine. But like, he was crucified. Why would you want to worship him? He was disgraced.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's fascinating with the differences in our mentality.
Sure.
And so I think we see that even here, because one of the biggest things, which I think shows very loudly in all these myths, is that, okay, so what was there before everything kind of happened?
Sure.
It was this primordial watery chaos. And it's like, that's almost a universal element in every single one of these myths.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound like it's all creation.
Right.
It sounds like it's just there was something. There was
but it's
things
usually
going on. And
it's like, it's chaos, though.
Right.
And so their form of making order is definitely different than how the Hebrew myth tells it.
Right.
But it's like there is still a chaos and order element to it. We see it in the Chinese one, creating yin and yang.
Right.
It's like, well, that's chaos and order. That's balance.
The balance, yeah.
Yeah.
Except in the Hebrew tradition, in the Christian tradition, it's not a balancing chaos and order.
Right.
So it's not equal parts chaos, equal
Correct.
parts order. It's elimination of chaos.
Yeah.
So as order is created, chaos goes away. As light comes, there's no more darkness.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas all of the other myths are this balance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where it's tough to be like, well, like, why are there bad things or why is there evil stuff? It's like, well, you wouldn't know how good things were unless you had evil or you had bad things.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, okay, but that's actually not part of the Christian faith.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the Christian faith is like right now, the earth is chaos.
Yeah.
And the goal is that there's order.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's a balance between chaos and order, but instead there's a full elimination of chaos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch out, guys. Trying to create order here.
But doesn't it make sense, though, that we would see descending and from a lot of these different civilizations. And I also made sure I wanted to add in these ones that are from very diverse parts of the world.
Yeah.
Because it's like, for me, it shows, okay, no matter what part of the earth you were on, everyone had a story to tell about creation.
True.
And there's so many elements to it that are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Or at least are so closely tied to one another that it's the same story.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think that is fascinating.
Yeah.
In and of itself.
Yeah.
But then we see the influence, and it's like looking at that balance between chaos and order. It's like, wouldn't we see that from these wicked beings trying to gain authority for themselves, trying to gain worship and power for themselves?
Sure.
Where it's like, yeah, they're creating chaos.
Right.
And they have to explain it.
Yeah, and in some ways it was created for them, right? It was for them to be able to kind of play with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But also the thing that sticks out to me too about Mayan and Aztec, and that's like, again, they kind of come later.
The corn.
Well, no. It seems like, let me put it this way. It seems like a lot of the pagan myths, because myth is not like, for the Christian, myth is not the bad word. The bad word is pagan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So myth is not a bad word. It's a descriptor of historical things that happened that have supernatural events or characters in it. And things like Leviathan, things that are literally in the Bible. Yeah. Even all the way into the English translation. Even though we have the deep in Genesis 1, we still have Leviathan in Psalm 74. Yeah. So, like, that's a real quick note, too. If you're having a hard time not seeing all of the supernatural things that are happening in the specifically Old Testament, just for starters, because that's where it all started, one of the best places to go is the Psalms. And don't read the Psalms as like feel good rhythmic phrases that can go on your wall over your desk. Yeah. It's like, read it as this is a creative retelling of the true myth, the true story of what's happening. And so it gives insight, the Psalms, which is honestly wild. Because there's a lot of things in the Psalms, like, for years I would read the Psalms and be like, what in the world is this even talking about? Yeah. Turns out it's talking about everything that came before it. It's talking about a lot. It's talking about stuff, and it's giving context and clarity to stuff that came before it that in our English translation doesn't necessarily want to give us that supernatural of a translation. Yeah. But they left it all in the Psalms. And in some places in the Psalms it was watered down a little bit too. Sure. But that type of thing.
I think it's important in the Psalms is great, but also like a lot of Old Testaments, like there's some weird stuff in there. Yeah. And I think the Psalms are really interesting because it's easier for us to read them outside of how we've been told to read them.
That's true.
Because that's one of my biggest phrases that I say all the time. It's like, let's read the Bible not the way I was told to read it, but let's read it how it actually reads. Yeah. Because there's going to be times, and it happened to me all the time, and I didn't really realize it until I realized it. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, I've read all of this stuff, but I read past it because it didn't make sense. Right. I just kind of skipped over it. Yeah. But then it's like, okay, so one of the things that can be helpful, and I think it's even good when we look at, well, what did God do when he created the universe, when he created everything,
Yeah.
well, he spoke it. It's the spoken word. So it's like, let's speak it when we read it too.
Yeah.
And that's something I think is a fun practice to get into.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity, it's like, well, when you sit down to read the Bible, let's read it out loud.
Right.
Just to yourself.
Yeah.
Just hear yourself speaking these words, and then catch those times where you're like, that doesn't make any sense. What is that?
Right.
And then underline it.
Yeah.
And go figure it out.
Right.
Just be like, what is that? Let me
Yeah.
just look that up.
Yeah.
Because I think that's such a cool way to kind of expose a lot of these elements that are in there that we don't read, because it's not in our worldview to read them.
Yeah. Yeah, and in a lot of ways, like, it's not anything to be scared about. It's not anything to be like, well, that makes that type of language or understanding that in some ways makes the Bible feel less true.
Yeah.
And that's probably the hardest hurdle for a lot of people, is like, if I really read and not read into it, but if I really read it and stop and think about and contemplate what it's actually saying, and not just move past it to the points that are potentially practical use for you. Because if you do that, you'll most likely be out of context if you skip over all the stuff that came before it.
Yeah, you're going to miss a ton.
Yeah, but in that way, it's like, it's okay that on the other side of modernity, on the other side of industrial revolution, on the other side of enlightenment, we have to still read the Bible as it's laid out and as it's written. I like that.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, then all we're doing is trying to make the Bible be simple for us.
We're just trying to force fit our own ideas into what it says.
Yeah.
Which will break down.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Essentially, what happens is you are developing your own Jesus to worship.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself is an idol.
Mm-hmm.
And that's terrifying.
That's scary.
It's more scary than what's actually in the Bible.
Yeah, that's so true.
Even though what's in the Bible is pretty
scary.
Yeah, it can be.
Speaking of which, flood myths.
Well, do we want to get there, or are we?
I've got 3 more sections. Well, so I'll set it up with this. How are we doing on time, actually?
We might need 3 more episodes.
I'm down with it. These are so fun.
I think we might need that because I think we're
going in. Well, then I'll set it up with this, and I'll say this to kind of close that out. I
think this episode is creation myth.
Yeah. Okay, we'll stay there. Which is, that's a lot.
It is,
and I went through them pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
But I think what's important with this is this is this weird mix where, one, it's like, okay, so as Christians, we say we believe the Bible, which means that we don't question what it says.
Right.
But now it's like, okay, what we just asked is like, well, what is it saying?
Right. That's the question.
But regardless of that, it's like, let's just take Genesis, the creation account. Like, we're like, that's gospel truth. That's it. That's how it happened, word for word, line for line.
Yeah.
And it's like, perfect. Let's take it.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at these other myths, which we just outlined a lot of them. And there's plenty more that I didn't even write down, too, from other civilizations.
Yeah.
And specific tribes as well that have their own version of it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do they have their own story, but it kind of aligns in some ways with what the Bible's saying. And so we'd be like, oh, well, they just copied. And it's like, or some people say the Bible copied.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, this is where it gets kind of confusing.
Well, and timeline-wise,
that's where I'm getting at.
Both could be. Yeah.
That's where it gets confusing.
Sure.
Because a lot of these were written down before the Bible was written down.
Right.
But does that mean that the Bible's version wasn't older?
Right.
It just means it was written down later.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's the weird thing with language. It's like, what's the first language? Well, we don't actually know.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't written down.
Yeah. That's
as
true.
far as we know.
Yeah.
We don't know how many different dialects and languages or words were never written down and were lost to time.
Yeah. We don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. And so I think what we can do right now is, and we do have the gift as Christians, the gift of faith to look into these things with that. But it's like, okay, let's look at what's here and let's piece it together. That's what I'm excited about when I look through it. It's like, well, what does it say? It's like, well, almost universally, everyone's saying it comes from some kind of chaos in the beginning,
Sure.
typically represented by some kind of waters.
Yeah.
Well, what does the Bible say? The same thing.
Yeah.
It says that there were these watery chaos things. And then in these other myths, it says, but then someone came in and tried to organize it.
Right.
Well, what does the Bible say? It says God came in and he did organize it.
Yeah, yeah.
He did create order.
He was successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is when we get into the weird parts, which we talked about, where they said, oh, and then this person created humans and he mixed in divine blood, or they were created from a tree or from clay or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that's interesting because that's not what the Bible says. The Bible paints a very different picture, and it paints
Not in
it
Genesis
that way.
1, it doesn't say that.
Well, what do you mean?
It doesn't say that there was divine blood mixed in.
Oh, I'm saying as far as creation of humans.
Correct.
Because that's where I'm getting at right now.
Okay.
Is because when we talk about that, that's when it becomes very problematic.
Sure.
With bloodlines and the purity of the humanity of Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's where Scripture is very clear and intentionally very clear.
Yeah.
That, no, there is no divine, unhuman blood poured into this. There is the breath of God.
Right.
That was poured into us. We're covered by the blood of Jesus.
Yes.
But we're not infused with the blood of Jesus.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
those are very different things, and they're very different intentionally.
Yeah.
So when we look at these other myths, where do they break down specifically? I think that's where they break down specifically.
Yeah, and the Bible tells us, not in Genesis 1, but in Genesis 6,
Yeah.
where a lot of that might come from.
Right.
Because if these other myths of creation are the insertion of bloodline or blood into humans in the creation of humans, well, that does happen in Genesis 6.
Right.
And so that's kind of where that branches off. And that's what I was going to say about specifically that the Mayan stuff and the Aztec stuff kind of pops out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is like, and it's true in the Mesopotamian space as well, but it's one of those things where what pops out to me a lot is it feels like the Genesis account is, hey, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And their accounts feel like, this is the information given to you.
Mm.
So somebody came and gave us this information.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, to clarify, it feels like the pagan myths were given to them by who wanted to shape their world.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that they contemplated and developed.
Mm.
And the same is true of the Hebrew.
Yeah.
But it's like God Yahweh is not just saying, hey, it's me, not Marduk.
Yeah.
But is also clashing with Marduk.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, this guy's wrong. Does exist, but is wrong.
Well, and that's the important thing when we look at, it's like, okay, which human was there in day one of creation?
Right.
No human.
Right.
And so how do we know how it happened?
Yeah.
Well, because we were told by someone or something.
Right.
And so I think there's a case to be made, not today, unfortunately. But it's like when we look at, and we'll get there eventually with these myths. Yeah. As far as the knowledge bringers.
Sure.
The ones that bring knowledge to humans. And that's a universal myth as well. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, here are all these lies that are getting spread, this misinformation about this is what happened.
That's two Trump
And
things.
then Yahweh... This was bouncing in my head, apparently. Just Trump jokes. And then we have Yahweh who's like, let me set the record straight.
Right.
This is what happened.
Yeah. And that's because I was trying to like make it as simple and precise, and that was so from what I said into what you said, back into maybe me reorganizing my brain one more time, is like, it's almost like by the time you get to Genesis 6 and the sons of God corrupting the daughters of man, and you have this translation of information and bloodline into the human space, which is a payoff episode later on that we're not quite at, but we keep talking about different elements of it, is is God coming and saying like, hey, what these guys told you, let me back up and tell you like, that's not the start. This is the start. They're telling you that this started in a different way. It didn't start in a different way, just directed at the wrong person.
Right.
And maybe that's the simplest way to put it, is all of these myths point to different people. And only one of them points to the right one. Yeah. So they're all very similar. They're all almost the same thing. And even the Bible references the other. Which would be interesting to look at the other myths and see how much they reference other myths.
That's kind of interesting.
Because it's really cool that the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, references other myths and corrects them. Yeah.
It pulls it back in and says, no, this.
Yeah, this is what you were told. This is actually what it is. Yeah. I'm telling you the real truth. Yeah. These are all other gods that have told you things, and these other gods have told you things the way that they want you to understand it and believe it, but they are coming as, they came to you as imitations of the one true God. They came to you, they came to you masquerading as an angel of light. Yeah. And as they came to you, they told you kind of the truth, but they directed it towards the wrong person
for themselves,
who deserves the glory for it. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, and let me follow this path real quick. This is Paul thoughts. This is our conspiracy corner.
Oh, this is our conspiracy corner.
It's not really conspiracy corner.
We did that once, and then we just left it behind.
Well, because we got into this.
That's a good point. We're kind of
which is wilder than conspiracy corner.
I know. Like the reality of history.
But no, it's like...
the true reality of history.
But I love it. But it's like, let's look at the serpent in the garden. Yeah. It's like, well, what was his deception to Eve? Was it a total lie? No, not at all. It wasn't. It was actually... There was truth in it. Yeah. And why is that important? Well, because Eve knows enough. She doesn't, obviously she didn't hear everything right. Adam probably added his own flair to it based on her answer to the question.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it's like, okay, well, why did he have to mix in truth with it? Because she already knew some of the truth. Right. And so he has to do that so he can then twist it and shape it to what he wants. Right. And so why are all these creation myths? Why do they share the same through line? And I think because all these people have a level of understanding of what happened. Right. And why would they have that? Well, because God walked with Adam in the garden. Yeah. He would have heard the story from Yahweh. Yeah. And as that story gets passed down and passed through, people are like, okay, well, what happened again? Like, I kind of know. Yeah. But I don't fully remember the whole story. And then you have these other beings coming in and saying like, hey, check this out.
To be completely honest, I don't think I've actually considered the fact that, and again, that's what we were talking about earlier, is like creating different cathedrals or spaces, like going from book to book or story to story and creating whole different worlds in your mind of what that is. Because we do that with like fiction books. Yeah. You kind of or a TV show. You live in the world of this TV show. Yeah. And their world building is what you call it. Yeah. And so like you live in that. But the problem is the Bible, the Bible is one world to live within.
But it's like these snapshots of these scenes.
Yeah, and we can't
And it's like, what's the bridge between them?
Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that Adam left the garden. Yes. So Adam in the garden
dishonorably discharged.
Yeah, good point. Adam in the garden is not different than Adam outside the garden.
Yeah, he still knows and did what he did.
Yeah, he just doesn't have access anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So like
his security code got turned off. Yeah.
Now the interesting question that we would never know the answer to is, does his knowledge change? So like, does he get Men in Black like memory wipe? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't
there's
see
no
a
indication
reason.
Of that.
There's no indication either way.
So then if you look at that, then through the line of Seth, at some point, seventh from Adam, Enoch, like you have these lines where like, of course they're going to be telling stories, and they don't have
Yeah.
TV.
Well, but I think that's why Enoch is such a significant figure in that story because of his writings.
Yes.
It's kind of like what he talks about is, in a way, it's like, okay, everyone has been given this forbidden knowledge,
right,
as he calls it,
yeah,
from these other divine beings that are coming here to corrupt everybody.
Yeah.
And he's been given his information from Yahweh, from these angels,
right,
these messengers of Yahweh. And they say, no, this is what you need to know. This is how it works.
Yeah.
This is truth.
Yeah.
And so, that's why his stuff is so significant.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of that correction. There's all this mixed up lies and corruption out here that people are believing, because what else did they have to believe?
Which is consistent
and then
with the Bible.
Enoch hears from the angels, and he goes, okay, now I have the truth. This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is consistent with how the Bible's laid out.
Yeah.
It's like they're telling you all this stuff. It's not Marduk. Like,
it's this.
Yeah, it's actually
Yahweh.
It's Yahweh. It's pulling all of it back in. So yeah, it's weird how like even the Genesis account is answering the true myth in the corruption of the chaos of all the other myths going on.
Yeah.
In order for there to be, and that's why it's interesting that there's there's one true myth, and then there's so many other ones.
The offshoots.
Yeah. And it's like, it's really funny how we go, all right, there's one, and then there's this other category that holds all the other ones.
Yeah.
And it's like, these are all just imitations over here. But that's not just us doing it.
Right.
Like, that's historically what's happened.
Yeah.
Those things have been separated. I mean, and,
But I think that's what's interesting about that, though, is like, even though they have been separated, they still tell the same story.
You're right.
And I think that's what's fascinating, is like, if myth was just us making up stuff,
right,
of these ancients making stuff up, we wouldn't expect the same story.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd expect completely different stories.
Yeah.
But they're not completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get all these different stories in different languages.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because of a bunch of other myths that we'll get into on the next episode. Where language becomes important.
Oh, I wasn't even there yet. It's going to bring a rain jacket.
Bring your rain jacket.
Bring your rain jacket.
Next time on Martyr's Row, grab your rain jacket. We'll see you then. 3, 2, 1.